طيب بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا وسهلا بحضراتكم. Welcome ladies and gentlemen on the ISB CC Q&A live show. I hope everyone is safe. Everyone is blessed with the home family gatherings. I know this is a very stressful time. However, during this stressful time, we have to hold tight to our faith and iman and hold out our beliefs, put them in action, into practice so that we can navigate those hard times. However, there's a bless during those hard times. And inshallah, today, let's talk about today. Allah said in Surah Fatir, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ غَفُورٌ. And during this past period, we have been bombarded by lots of information and lots of news and all like the social media, the talk shows, the news, the social news platform are talking about COVID-19. Some of those are reality. Some of those are, I would say, that's not real and are actually false facts or false news. However, we couldn't find someone like who can talk about this COVID-19, about the virus, except scientists who spend most of his time in the research in the virology and the virus fields. And today, our guest is a molecular virologist. Let me introduce him. Molecular virologist with more than 10 years in research. I spent 10 years in the research of the virus. He's a PhD in virology from University of Cambridge and a former MIT research scientist. Our guest today was selected by the Nature Middle East as one of the top 5 Arab science communicators to follow. Is someone that we advise, and not only we advise, like the Nature of the Middle East advise that you follow this scientist. Our scientist today is a founder of the Viral Blog, which is something that I recommend that all of you follow. It's a video blog or a series of online education about viruses. And he authored and co-authored more than 20 original research articles about the virus. Please join me welcoming Dr. Islam Hussein. Assalamu alaikum, Islam. How are you?
Alaikum assalam. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you very much for joining. Thank you for joining us live today, and thank you for making the time. I know that on your Facebook you mentioned that you really don't have time, and you're like spending most of your time studying. May Allah bless you, bless your time. However, I know that there's tons of questions right now, Dr. Islam, tons of questions and tons of information going on the social media, and you are trying to get your social platforms, your YouTube channel, your Viral Blog, you're trying hard to separate between science, facts, and the fiction. So, and this series today is part of us knowing more of the facts, even if the facts are tough facts. I would say that's blunt facts. So thank you for sharing this with us. Let's start by, I have like some questions, and please join us asking questions online, and we will show them to Dr. Islam, inshallah, if we have time. Dr. Islam, question number one, that's the virus showed in Wuhan in China, and then are we seeing much more lethal strain than what's happened, what we saw in China? Is the virus like did something in the mutation, in the behavior? Are we seeing something different?
Well, first of all, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and thanks for the introduction, and thanks for having me today. The answer is no. That's the short answer. Viruses mutate all the time. This is the biology of viruses. They have an enzyme that they use for copying their genetic material, and this enzyme makes mistakes all the time. Okay, so every new virus will carry a mutation that probably didn't exist in the ancestor. Okay, but most of these mutations are silent. Some of them are even harmful to the virus. They're not actually offering any advantage. Very, very minority of these mutations can give the virus a new advantage or can change the function of one of the proteins that this virus is using to infect and transmit between people. Okay, so far, talking specifically about SARS coronavirus 2 or COVID-19, we do not have an evidence that the mutations that scientists have recorded are causing any change or affecting the behavior of the virus or the transmissibility of the virus or the ability of the virus to cause disease. There is a bunch of mutations that we know that they exist, and they reflect the natural behavior of the virus. Nothing to worry about yet. This is predicted. It's going to happen with corona or anything other than corona. This is the nature of viruses. They mutate. We can only start to worry when we find one of these viruses is outgrowing the others or dominating over the others. Okay, this is a clear sign of one of these viruses is acquiring a function that didn't exist before. So far, we don't see this picture. There are few changes. Even we cannot even call them strain. The word strain is used when we know that there are differences in functions or there are differences in how the immune system reacts to the virus. Okay, so far, even the word strain cannot be used scientifically. Okay, these are variants, and this is natural. We do not have an evidence that they differ in virulence in different geographic regions.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dr. Islam. So if this is the answer, why are we seeing discrepancy between like what's happening in Italy or what's happening in South Korea and what's happening right now in the United States? The United States today like surpassed Italy in the number of cases impacted.
Yes.
Why is it like a cycle that we have to pass? Some countries are earlier than others in the cycle, or why if the virus is only one strain? So why there's a discrepancy in the number of cases?
This is an excellent point. Okay, so the difference is it all depends on how you react in the beginning of the problem. Okay, so we knew, all countries knew about the news from China and knew that there is a new virus emerging in China. Okay, what you have done immediately after the news will define the course of the problem when the virus comes in. Okay, so in Italy there was a lag in their response. They didn't do anything for like maybe 6 weeks. Okay, they actually recommended people. One of the politicians recommended people to live their lives, to not to make any changes in their lives. So like live as if it is normal. Okay, so this created a lag that's probably responsible to what we see in Italy today. In the US, starting from the 1st of January all the way up to like mid-February, the US has done nothing. Okay, people were like showing symptoms and they were trying to get tested, and there were no tests. Okay, let's not get into this now. After the crisis is over, I'm sure that people will go back and see what went wrong. But in South Korea, because you brought up the Korean example, they reacted really quickly. Okay, they are geographically closer to China, and they have experience from another virus from the same family called MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome virus, which emerged in 2012. South Korea had the biggest outbreak outside the Arab Peninsula. So they learned a lot of lessons from the MERS outbreak, and they made benefit out of these lessons, and they were more prepared. They went ahead and they quickly executed the tests, and they made it available across the country, and their healthcare system was ready to react really quickly. So the difference, to summarize, the difference is not in the virus, the difference in how humans are reacting to the disease at the early stage of spread.
Perfect. So like this is a very good answer. If this is the case, why we are not seeing this virus in Africa? Like all the world is like infected, except in Africa. What's going on?
Well, that's for a start. This is good news. We hopefully Africa will stay this in the same slow rate of spread. Hopefully, inshallah, it will clear quickly. But we don't know exactly what's going on. There are speculations about factors that could be involved. For example, and I know that this question might come up in the queue about the PCG vaccine, the TB vaccine. There are theories about why the disease is not spreading as quickly as in Europe and in the US, but we do not have a clear answer. It's good news for us and for people who live in these countries. We don't know whether it's going to stay like this. It might be an early conclusion that we don't know what's going to happen next week. God forbid nothing is going to happen, but we don't know yet what's going to happen, what is going to happen. So this is a very interesting question. And right now, the doctors and researchers are more keen on saving lives. Okay, we're trying to reduce the fatality rate as much as we can. The time that we need to spend on answering questions is a bit limited at this time, especially with the lockdown. Even labs are not functioning at full capacity.
I lost the sound. I lost the sound. I can't hear you. Yeah.
Okay,
no.
it muted. Touch it.
Okay.
All right.
So what you're saying, that's we are still in the watchful waiting periods, but no speculations yet. No speculation. You mentioned something.
We have speculations, but we don't have clear answers.
Okay.
And the speculations are currently being tested, and hopefully we will know more in the coming few months.
Awesome. Thank you. This is like answers something in my list of questions, which is like, does PCG or those type of vaccines proven yet that people who have been vaccinated with the vaccine will not get or be less susceptible to get the corona?
So PCG vaccine, it was made long time ago to protect against a bacterial infection, a type of bacteria called tuberculosis, or TB for short. It's not made to protect against coronavirus. It should provide specific immunity against tuberculosis. But over the past decades, people observed some sort of non-specific immunity that is a result of PCG vaccination. Okay, so it's not completely new. We have precedents of partial innate immunity due to PCG vaccination. But let me just clarify, this is not immunity directed toward coronavirus. This is what we call innate immune mechanisms, natural immune mechanisms that exist in our body. And when we get the PCG vaccine, some scientists think that they train our immune system to react in a much better way or much more efficient way when we encounter other pathogens. And maybe we're lucky that coronavirus is one of those pathogens, okay? But even PCG vaccine does not provide solid immunity against tuberculosis bacteria itself. So the pathogen that was used to make the vaccine is you're not completely protected against, okay? So that can give you an indication about the level of protection that you might get from the PCG vaccine. Even if it plays a role, it's not completely protective. And if someone gets this false sense of security that I am PCG vaccinated, which means I cannot be infected by corona, this is completely wrong. And anyone is doing like this is endangering himself or herself. So we don't know. There is a correlation. If you look at the map, there is a correlation between the countries where PCG vaccine is mandatory and countries where they don't have it, like Italy, the US, for example. Whether this is going to stand to scientific scrutiny in the coming few months, we don't know yet. It might be proven or disproven, but what we know for sure, it's not going to be leak-proof, 100% solid immunity. This is not going to happen.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Dr. Islam. And this is like will bring me to like the next question, which is, you know, that we're getting the new cases. We're getting three boxes, which is new cases, and then recovered, and then deceased or dead. So I'm interested to know the recovered case. So what does recovered mean? What are the stuff that's, why they say they recovered? Is it like their respiratory system went back functioning normal? And are those recovered patients or recovered people from the corona, are they going to get infected again with the corona, or they can get out and now they have immunity against the corona?
Okay, so there are two types of viral infections. One that we call acute, which means it's a very short course. Someone gets infected and the immune system will react to the disease, and then at some point it can get cleared completely. And there is the other type of viral infections that we call chronic infections, which stay for a long time. Like, for example, HIV, hepatitis C, and herpes viruses and others. Okay, where corona is an acute disease. Okay, so it hits, and then there is a reaction from the immune system. And if the immune system can win, if it can win the battle and it can overcome the virus, then at some point the body should clear itself of the virus, and then everything gets back to normal. Okay, so the people who are defined as recovered, those people have no fever anymore. Their respiratory functions are coming back to normal, and there are criteria that clinicians use in the hospital or in the clinic to measure oxygenation, for example, in the blood, and so on and so forth. And they came up negative in 2 successive lab tests. Okay, so if any person fills this criteria, any infected person is classified as recovered and then can leave the hospital and go back home and should develop immunity. And that gets me to the second half of your question. So those people who we define as recovered, we know that our immune system forms something called antibodies. Okay, these antibodies will in case of the body encounters the virus one more time. If infection happens within, let's say, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, these antibodies will be there to recognize the virus in a very specific manner and neutralize it and protect the body from the infection. Okay, these antibodies stay in in the blood for some time. Okay, and then they start waning with time. Their levels will go down. But fortunately, we have something else called immune memory. Okay, we have memory cells that when we encounter the virus again after, let's say, a year, will recognize the invader one more time and produce more of these antibodies. The question with coronavirus is that we don't know for how long these immune memory cells will stay in our bodies. In the normal scenario, like if we look at other viruses within the same family, like SARS-CoV-1 or MERS, this period is usually like 1.5, probably 2 years. Okay, so we don't know. It could be more. It could be more than 2 years. There are some infections that produce long life immunity. You're in, like that when you get a shot, when a child gets a shot shortly after birth, some of these shots will protect him against the disease for the rest of his life. Okay, we don't know yet if SARS-CoV-2 will behave in the same way, but it's not going to be short immunity to a point where someone gets reinfected in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month or 2. Let's give it at least a year minimum. And then I think with time, we will begin to know more about for how long this immunity lasts.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dr. Hussein. Dr. Hussein, this is very interesting. And actually, I've read the answer of my question, my coming question on your Facebook page and the blog. However, I would like the audience to know this answer. So the coronavirus, does it like hit directly the respiratory system, or does something on the hemoglobin and do something in the blood structure? Because like there's some stuff that's been written on social media. Hey guys, it's not like respiratory anymore. We don't need those ventilators, and thank God everything is okay. No, it's hemoglobin related.
No. So we don't know yet. We don't have a clear picture of the exact pathogenesis of this virus. And what I mean by pathogenesis is where does it go? What does it hit? We're still in the beginning. We're still learning. We know that it targets the lung. We know that it goes, this is the prime target organ for the virus. We know that the receptors on human cells that this virus uses to enter cells are also present in the digestive tract, in the intestinal tract. Okay, and the viral genetic material has been detected in stools, in human excreta. Okay, so we know that it goes to the lung. We know it goes to the intestinal tract. There are speculations about maybe it goes to the heart. We don't know yet. There are some other speculations about whether the virus invades the brain, because there are some nervous symptoms, but we don't know yet whether it's because of the direct effect of the virus or could be an indirect effect of the low oxygen in the blood when there is deficiency in the lung function. Okay, so there are few gray areas, let's call them gray areas for now, but we have no proof, zero solid, credible evidence to support the hemoglobin story. Okay, the virus does not replicate in red blood cells. The story is all based on a preprint, which means that this is a manuscript, like a scientific paper that has not been subjected to peer review, has not been revised, have not been critiqued in the scientific way by colleagues in the same field. And this is someone or a couple of people who came up with a theory based on modeling. Okay, you can do a lot of modeling on your computer. It won't cost you anything. You can sit on your desk for a few hours and come up with a lot of cool stuff. But whether this translates to what happens in the human body, we don't know yet. We don't even those people who published this revised manuscript, they did not provide experimental proof. Okay, so it's all based on computer modeling. In biology, we won't believe the model until you prove, or until the researcher shows experimental evidence that supports the model. Until then, this model is a cool story. We can probably talk about it, but we can keep thinking about it, but we cannot take it as a way to substantiate the claim that it attacks hemoglobin. It's still too early, and nothing is substantial to support this claim.
Thank you, Dr. Hussein. Dr. Hussein, I have a question from Catherine Piper. She said, Assalamu alaikum. How does a virus immediately become a zoonotic virus? Would it normally die in a foreign host? Also, what likelihood that a vaccine will be a requirement? And we have the on. You can read the question on the screen.
That's a very nice question. So about 70% of new viral diseases in humans are coming from animals. So the majority are of animal origin. There is nothing really specific that defines which viruses would become zoonotic or not. We have a lot of information about some of these families: coronaviruses, influenza viruses. These are like some of the famous examples, but there are so many others that are not as famous. But the thing is, it's an interaction between us, animals, and the environment. Okay, a concept that we refer to as One Health approach. We do not live as humans. We do not live on our own. We do not live in vacuum. We live in an environment, and there are some other creatures that live with us on the same planet. These viruses, as I mentioned in the beginning, are changing all the time. They're acquiring mutations that could, if everything works, if everything clicks, if you add all the elements together in the same picture at the same time, could allow this virus, if it acquired certain changes that would allow it to infect human cells, it can jump. Okay, this happened in the past. It's happening now. We saw corona, and it's going to happen, unfortunately, again in the future. And our behavior as humans usually facilitates this event. So, for example, in China, if you gather a lot of animals in the same market and humans, and these animals are mostly wild animals, and they're probably carrying viruses that we have never been exposed to. So our immune system is completely armless. We have no experience of these viruses whatsoever. We have never had any vaccination against them. It's like we're armless, zero. If this virus jumps into the human and it has the features that would allow it to infect humans and replicate, it will cause a problem like the coronavirus that can at some point reach to a pandemic level if this is a respiratory infection. And as I mentioned, we as humans, because we travel a lot, before the lockdown, count how many millions of people are traveling by air every day. So the modern life that we live is actually facilitating the spread of diseases. The other part of the question is whether vaccination will be required. It's going to be very helpful. We do not expect to have a vaccine until maybe next year. It takes time for the vaccine to be tested to make sure that it's safe and effective. And safety is the objective number one. We don't want to be injecting people with stuff that can cause any trouble. So these tests are currently being done and maybe like pushed to be done really quickly because we're in the middle of the crisis and we need to have something as quickly as possible. So it's going to help a lot. And when it becomes available, it should play a major role in stopping any future waves of spread. Hopefully, God forbid, nothing is going to happen. Mm-hmm. But if it hits again, if we have a vaccine, that will help us a lot.
Thank you very much, Hussein. This is a very thorough answer. I have a question, Islam, and today is very sunny and we're approaching summer. And summer here might be like we're facing high temperature. Mm-hmm. Does this coronavirus change behavior or hot weather? Are we expecting this virus to disappear, hopefully, during summer?
So the short answer is we do not expect it to disappear, but we expect the spread to decrease, the wave of spread to go down. And the explanation is we know from our past experience that some of these respiratory viral pathogens are seasonal. So they follow a seasonal pattern. They usually are more active in the beginning of the winter months, and then by April, the level of spread goes down. Influenza is one of the major examples. Okay, and this is guided by several factors related to the virus and the environment and the host. These viruses are transmit much better under cold and dry conditions, which are what we get during winter. And during winter, we tend to stay in groups indoors to avoid the cold weather outside, and that facilitates the spread between people. And the dry conditions also affect the layer of mucus in our respiratory tract that usually protects us against microbial invaders. And if we do not have, going back to corona, if we do not have prior immunity, the chance for all of these factors to play together is mostly going to be a reduction in the wave of transmission with the beginning of the summer months. But because we do not have any prior immunity, we do not expect it to completely vanish. So it might go down, and then unfortunately with the beginning of the next winter season, it can go up again. These are all speculations. We do not know. We cannot see into the future. We are just trying to speculate based on our prior knowledge about other seasonal viruses. Whether coronavirus is going to behave like a classical seasonal virus, we don't know yet. It's going to be unlikely because of the lack of the immunity. But with these months, just to give some hope, we are buying time because maybe within the coming few months we'll find a drug. Okay, so if it hits again, we're better prepared.
Okay, awesome. Just like we have like 1 minute left, I have like a couple of questions. One of them is is this any relation between food we eat and boosting the immunity? I've read too many like stuff on the social media saying that if you eat this particular food, then you're prepared to, God forbid, if you have corona, the immunity will take care of this corona.
You're not referring to shalawlaw?
You're taking me to this.
Okay, so most of this is I wouldn't classify it as science. It's anecdotal stuff. What we know for sure is if someone is malnourished, their immune system won't be reacting in the same efficient way whether it's corona or anything else. Okay, so malnutrition is something that we should all avoid. And alhamdulillah, the blessings are available, and we're blessed by having the resources and food around us. So we're not really, but there could be some vitamin deficiency. Okay, it's known that vitamin D is an important factor in activating our cellular immune response. I have chronic vitamin D deficiency because I live in New England. My doctor prescribed to me vitamin D to take as a nutritional supplement because I have chronic vitamin D deficiency, and I'm not the only one. I would expect the majority of people who live in Massachusetts are probably the same. I'm not a doctor, okay? So you go check with your doctor. Don't take any advice from me related to your health. So, for example, vitamin D. If you have vitamin D deficiency, and we know that it plays a role in your immunity, correct it. Okay, if you have a balanced diet and you eat normal food, you're probably going to be okay.
Islam, thank you much. One last final thing. I know that we are 1 minute above our time. However, there's a question I want to ask you. Can please take off your scientist hat and tell me, Islam as a human being. Yeah, Islam as a human being. Tell me right now, are you hopeful? What message do you have to carry to your family every day?
Yeah.
As a scientist, as a father, as a husband, what message do you have?
It's going to be over at some point. We're going to win this. We
Sound, Islam. Islam, you've been muted. Islam, please. Islam, you've been muted.
Yeah, it's not me. It's
okay.
Platform. Anyway, we're in a much better situation. We are in a much better situation than the pandemic influenza that hit us back in 1980. We have better medical care. We have better technologies. We can quickly react and develop vaccines. We can come up with drugs. So we're alhamdulillah in a much better place. My predictions for the future as a human being, if I take off my scientist hat, is that it's going to take a while, but it will probably go down. I think maybe in the next couple of months we will see a change, and I'm not doing this because it's not just based on false or wishful thinking. Look at China, the wave went down. Look at South Korea, it's pretty much under control. Hopefully, inshallah, in the US, we'll see something similar with all of the lockdown that's everywhere, and outside the US as well. But let's just focus on here. I would expect that the wave will go down. It might take a couple of months, maybe more. And I'm hoping, based on my understanding of how science works, is that we will be prepared, inshallah, if it hits again in the next season, or if any other virus related to corona or otherwise, because what we have seen, what we have witnessed, will leave a very deep impression. It's a very, very powerful lesson for humans, like regular people, for governments, for scientists, for decision makers. We should not see this again, inshallah. Okay, people who make decisions, I think they are now learning something, and the behavior and the policies around providing solutions to this kind of problems will probably be much better and more available in the future. So rest assured, inshallah, we're going to survive this. Unfortunately, there are casualties. Allah yarhamhum, may Allah bless them all. But we will survive this.
Islam, thank you very much. Our hearts, thoughts, and prayers are with you and your fellow scientists, researchers who are spending hours, days, and nights away from home trying to find solution to this case. And jazakallah khairan for your time. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, everyone who joined us live today. And thank you, Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you. Alaikum salam. And God bless you all. Stay safe.
Okay. Thank you, Islam. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.